Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to LinkedIn Tuesday. It's November 11th, 2025. We're very glad you're with us today. Please note this event is being recorded. The recording will be on the Career USA YouTube channel for others to view in the future. By participating in this event, you give consent for your name and picture to appear. Please note that any comments you put in the Zoom chat window will not appear in the recording. For everybody who's on Zoom, this is a great opportunity to connect with everybody else who's on the call. Go ahead and put in your name, the position you're looking for. Give us a couple target companies that we may be able to help you with. Give us your email address, your LinkedIn address, so we can connect with you. This is all about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is all about connecting with everybody else because you never know who can help someone else on the call. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jeff Morse. Back in 2008, I started a website called careerdfw.org, a website to help those unemployed in Dallas-Fort Worth area. In 2012, I started careerusa.org to help those around the United States. I wrote the book, What I've Learned About Your Job Search That You May Not Know. It is available on Amazon, or if you see me in person, I usually have copies with me. Since 2007, I've been facilitating and leading the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group. This group's been around since the late 1990s. I took it over in 2007 when the prior leader landed a job. And we've got an interesting program coming up this Friday. And I'll tell you about it at the end of the session. And since 2017, I've been a member of the practice interview team, also known as the PIT crew. Don't wait until you have an interview. Practice your interviewing skills now. Practice early, practice often is their motto. Well, we have 4 outstanding speakers who talk about LinkedIn on a monthly basis. Today, our speaker is Kurt VandeMotter. This morning, he was called out of town. So what we're going to be doing is I'll be replaying his presentation from 3 months ago. So that's what you will be hearing today, LinkedIn from a recruiter's eye. So just give me a second to get things going.
Answer some of the questions that you've got. And I'll answer that real quickly because, again, this is not about me. I came out of corporate America working for brands like Pepsi, Dr. Pepper 7-Up, AT&T, and some startup technology stuff. And not as a HR executive, but as a sales, marketing, and operations executive. So for my full career, I'm 66 years old. So for 45 years, I have been in corporate America, hiring, firing, been a part of succession planning. 16 years ago, I found myself looking for a new opportunity. The company I was working for called me on the 4th of July and told me that they had eliminated my job and that I could stay on vacation as long as I wanted to, come back to negotiate your severance when you're done. So long story short, that's what launched me into the search business. And let me tell you just a little bit about the search business and the people and the players in this industry so that some of you, again, may be getting calls from recruiters. Some of you would like to develop relationships with recruiters. And I hope that I can answer a lot of your questions as it relates to that particular subject because it's a very important one. Very first and foremost is that you can't hire a recruiter to help find you a job. They're the recruiters that you want to hire, the people that you think you want to hire that come to you and tell you for $20,000 they'll find you a job. Run as fast as you can because those people really aren't there to help you. They're there to take your money, and they don't have any tools that are any better than the tools that you've got in your tool chest. So the very first thing is never pay anybody to help you find a job. Now, you do need to occasionally hire somebody that's going to help you with your LinkedIn profile, somebody that might help you with your resume. So there are some services along the way that you might have to pay for to have stuff printed or something like that. But for the most part, I think that's general common sense. Don't pay anybody anything else to help find a job. There's only one person that can find you a job, and that's yourself. And it's the hardest job you'll ever have. And it sucks because you get rejected every day. You get ghosted. You think you're a perfect fit for a role, and you can't get anybody's attention. You've exhausted your network and nobody's making any introductions. I've heard it all, but don't pay anybody to do that work for you. So then let's jump into the kinds of recruiters. There's three kinds of recruiters. There's internal recruiters, and these are the recruiters that work for companies. I use the example of AT&T. They may have 50 different recruiters. They've got a certain number of recruiters that are working on retail stores. They've got recruiters that are working on cell tower development. They've got recruiters that are working on the executive roles. They've got recruiters that are working on the call centers. You get where I'm going. They've got a lot of different recruiters. They're generally in silos, and they recruit for their hiring managers all over the country. Most of these recruiters could have anywhere from 30 to 50 jobs open at one time. So that's important to know, because when you're talking to an internal recruiter, you want to be very direct and to the point, understanding that they've got a lot going on. Now, while we're on internal recruiters, the other thing that I want you to know is that they do follow their applicant tracking systems pretty well, pretty straight. So if your resume doesn't match up to everything that they've got, all the barriers, all the hurdles that they've got set up in their applicant tracking system, then you may not become, or you may not come out the other end as a fit for that particular role. What can you do to avoid that? Well, let's correct one thing up front, and that is to make sure that every time you send a resume for a job, you customize it to make sure that it reflects the offer or the job that you're looking to get. Very important for you to use the keywords. I think Jeff can give you some advice on a couple of different platforms, but AI is a great place to start, to throw a job description into AI and ask it to give you the most important elements of that job is one place. You can do it on your own, but quickly you can modify, make changes to your resume. You can make sure that it's got the keywords and so forth to enhance or increase your options, increase the chances of you getting through that applicant tracking system. So internal recruiters, very busy. You've got to be very direct. They know exactly what they're looking for. Hard to sell them on, I've done this, which looks a lot like that, because again, they know their hiring managers. And internal recruiters, unfortunately, are generally a little bit younger in their career, and they're a little less creative. And they want to please, they want to meet the needs of their hiring manager. So they're generally not willing to go off script as much as an external outside recruiter might be. So then there's outside contingent recruiters, and these people get hired by companies that are looking to fill generally more junior roles. It can be a vice president of sales, but a company can sign a contract with 2 or 3 or 4 contingent recruiters, and the only one that gets paid anything is the person that brings them the job or brings them the candidate to fill that job. So nobody gets paid any kind of retainer up front. You work on a contract, and that contract outlines what the compensation is going to be when you bring the right candidate. And then it's a race. And I mean a race because sometimes it can take days, sometimes it can take weeks, but you're working. The recruiters that do this work are working very hard, very quickly, in order to get the candidate's name in front of the client before the next recruiter does. So it is a time game. But it doesn't make them bad. It just makes them different, and they work at a much faster pace. And then there's retained search executives. Again, outside, these are both outside recruiters. So a company goes outside of their organization to fill one of these jobs. And an outside retained search is what I do. And when I'm filling roles, I'm exclusive. So there's nobody else that I'm competing against. There's no other search firm that's looking for that CEO or that CFO, that CMO, the production manager, whatever role it is. I get paid up front a retainer to start that service. And so we've got a tie in. We're both on the same page. they're more likely to take my phone calls and answer my emails quickly because they know that they've paid me a chunk of money up front and they want to fill that role quickly. Um, and so I generally have a little bit deeper of an insight or relationship with the employer because I'm spending a lot more time trying to really figure out what it is that we're trying to fill. What is the job that we're trying to fill? The times that I failed in what I do is when I pivot too quickly within a role or the company changes the role on me. They say that they're looking for a sales VP, but it was inside. Now they want somebody that's outside. And so it's really important that you stay clear with the client. And I know I do 99% of the time. But the advice that I'm going to give you right now is, I think, very, very helpful in that it doesn't matter whether you're working with an internal recruiter, a contingent, or a retained search executive, an outside retained or contingent. Is what I really encourage you to do is to try to learn from the people that you're talking to, these recruiters, is to try to get them to tell you what is it that the company is trying to solve with this hire. What do they want to accomplish? What do they want to do? What do they want to see in 30, 60, 90, 120 days? If you were to give me a review for this role after the first 6 months, what would be on that review that would distinguish me as being the best hire they've ever made because I accomplished what? If you can get the hiring manager, if you can get the recruiter to answer that question, you're going to be so much closer to the target zone than you ever imagined, and you're going to be able to now directly talk to and answer those specific questions, and telling them stories about what you've done and how you've done it. So I'm going to stop right there, Jeff. Are there any questions in the queue?
Uh, One question came up. What do you suggest when you have the technical experience, but you don't have any degrees or certificates? It's hard to get past the computer programs. You know, if you have an associate's
Yep.
degree and 20 years experience doing what they're asking for, but you just don't happen to have the requirements, how do you handle that?
I think that's a real common problem, and I hate to hear that because I think that companies oversee or overlook a lot of great candidates. Um, what you just described is a lot different than somebody that has 2 years of experience and doesn't hasn't completed their degree. And the difference is that the person that's got 20 years of experience has got the degree, on the job training tenfold, and can do that job not probably in their sleep, but can bring suggestions, advice, and creativity to the table. So that's when you really want to try to find somebody internally that you can talk to that can shed some light on suggestions of how you overcome that barrier, overcome that obstacle in your resume or in communicating with that hiring manager. Because companies in some cases do have a tolerance. I would suggest that probably 80% of the hiring managers would love to see that candidate, but the recruiters aren't bringing them to them because they don't check that one box.
One thing I replied to this person about is that if you're currently unemployed and you're getting unemployment through this for people who are in the Texas area, Texas Workforce Commission, there's a act called the Workforce Investment Act, and they have money that will that you can apply for to get those certificates or degrees that you need. So you have experience, but you don't have the degree, this is how you can get it. So check with your local TWC office, and you can check with any office. You don't have to do the office as closest to you, but just ask for the Workforce Investment Act, how to do that.
Good, great advice. I don't know that we
Um,
completely gave that person the solution, but there are some workarounds, but it requires some tenacity and some extra digging and extra communicating for sure.
Terry asked, does my resume have to list all of my previous experience? I
No.
saw a resume yesterday that looked more like an introduction to the person, and it would pique interest for the recruiter. It looked very interesting and maybe wanted me to want to reach out to her.
Yeah, I think that I think especially candidates that have got a lot of experience. They've got maybe they've been working like me. They've been working for 40 years. They may want to draw the line, and so I think that it's important that number one, resume should be 2 pages. You can have a 6 page resume or an 8 page resume. But you want to use that cautiously and only with the recruiter or the company that asks for a lot more detail. If they say, gosh, you're a very experienced executive, and I know that you've done more than what's on this piece of paper, and you can say, yeah, I've got a 6 page resume that'll give you a lot more content on all the roles that I had and my accomplishments. Then you would present that resume, but only then when they ask for that, or you sense that they're asking a lot of questions that could be answered if they had that document in their hands. With that said, um, the last job you had in your bullets as far as the job title, you've got your job title and the company you work for, there should be probably 5 to 6 bullets in that most recent job. 4 is acceptable, but probably 5, 6. And then from that point forward, it goes to 4, 3, 3. And it's all right to put an early, or if you want to be completely transparent earlier in career and list the companies that you work for, you don't have to tell the titles, but the companies. Um, and you can leave off your year of graduation. Um, so those are all kinds of things. I'm not suggesting that those are tools that you can use to kind of hide your age, because I encourage candidates to not try to do that. Be transparent. The company you're interviewing with, the company you're talking to, is going to find out how old you are eventually. And so there's really nothing that you can do to hide that to get you in any quicker. Um, so I don't know if that helps, but definitely 2 pages and maybe the last 3 or 4 jobs, depending on what those were and what industries and what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I like to use the term prior relevant experience and then
Hmm.
just list the name of the company that you worked for, because when by doing that, then you're able, if you're in an interview, you can bring up a story about something you did at one of those companies that you didn't have on your resume, but by putting prior relevant experience, they can see, oh, yes, you used to work for that company.
Right. And what Jeff just said is so critical. If you didn't hear it, what he said was, you can tell a story. And that's really what we want to do when we're in the interview experiences. We want to tell stories. I don't know, Jeff. We're kind of bouncing around here, which is good. But the best candidates, and Jeff offered up front, and he'll probably go through it again at the end, and I encourage him to. But he talks about the pit crew. Those of you that have been out for more than a couple of months, more than a month or two, and you're starting to get interviews and you haven't gone through the pit crew and you haven't gotten that experience, I think you're missing out on one of the best experiences, free experiences in the market. I mean, fair days are coming up and the fair is fun, but this is going to help you accelerate getting you a job. And these people are serious about what they do, and they value the opportunity to try to help you. But interviewing is a real skill, and the candidates that know how to use the behavioral interview model in interviewing as the candidate accelerate their ability to close jobs. I'm going to define and describe this a little bit because I think it's really important. Back in the early days of my career when I was working for Pepsi, they sent us away for training all the time, and Dr. Pepper 7 Up did, and AT&T did. All those major companies spent a lot of money training their employees. And one of the things that we had to go to every year was a behavioral interviewing class. It was 5 days or 4 days. And it was brutal because you had to sit around and interview your friends and the people that you worked with all day, and it just got to be old after a while. But I can do it pretty quickly and pretty confidently here. A behavioral interview with the interviewer, the person that's interviewing you, if they are using the behavioral interview model and they've been trained to do behavioral interviewing, they're going to ask you questions about, tell me a time that you had to overcome a problem working with somebody difficult that was not on your team and achieve the goal on time and under budget. That is a behavioral interview. They want a question. They want to ask a question that's going to get you talking about something that you did. How did you do it? What did you learn? What would you have done differently? What was the outcome? So forth and so on. Those are behavioral questions. But as candidates, we have the ability to answer behaviorally with every question that the candidate or the company asks us, even if it's not a behavioral question. You're interviewing for a sales role, senior sales role, and the interview says to you, so what are you going to do this weekend? You might go into, let me tell you a difficult sales solution that I came up with on the sideline at a soccer game a month ago when my daughter was playing the last game of her season, before she became a senior, and you tell a story about what you did and what you learned and how you overcame that problem. You tell a story. So candidates that can tell stories about what they did, how they did it, what they would have done differently, when you go into an interview, you know what the interview objectives are. You know the priorities for that role. At least you better. Knowing either you're getting that data through a recruiter that you're working for, or you're getting that data through, the interviewer that you're interviewing with, to try to understand. Can you tell me a little bit more about the format of the interview and any of the information? It comes back to completely understanding what the problems are that they want to solve. So if they've got financial issues, then a lot of the answers to your questions are going to be spun around what you've done to help facilitate financially an organization to heal themselves, to get stronger, to be able to accelerate their growth, to slow down because of tariffs, to speed up because of an open door and an opportunity that became available. You know what you've done better than I or anybody else on this phone will ever know. But those are the stories that you need to start to prepare. So a really good interviewer will have 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 stories in their in their uh, in their quiver that they can pull out and tell and talk about, depending on which direction the company is going and depending on the kinds of questions that they're asking. But back to the bottom line is that if you can learn how to answer questions in a behavioral fashion, telling stories about what you did and what your success stories are, you will accelerate your search. I guarantee it.
All right, Megan asked, how important are job titles to the recruiters? Someone could have a title of XYZ, but the duties are those of someone who's in a different position they're applying for.
Yep. Critical. You can't lie. The one place you can't lie is on a job application. And I'm not giving you that information because I'm encouraging you or anybody else on this call or any of your friends to ever lie about anything. But what I am suggesting is that if you're filling out a job application or you are submitting your resume for a job, and I use this example often, and they're looking for a um, customer service management manager, with um, uh, what's the word I want, Jeff? Um, oh gosh, um, trying to keep people. Customer service and acquisitions. Let's just throw in the word acquisitions. And you've been a customer service manager, but you've done the acquisitions, but it's not in your title, so that you haven't been responsible for churn, or you haven't been responsible for turnover of customers. If you've had that responsibility, but it's not been a part of your title. At one company, it could be that you have the title of customer service manager, and at another company it could be customer service and acquisitions manager. Okay, because they're really doing the same thing. They're not only serving the needs of the customer, but they're trying to acquire and keep customers at the same time. I would modify my resume to make sure that it reflects as closely as a title as it possibly can to the title of what the company's looking for. Now, you can't, here again, you can't lie. And so if if they're looking for a salesperson and you've never been a route driver driving a truck, this is not the time to try to tell them that you know how to drive a semi and deliver, Pepsi products. You've been a pre-salesman, but you've never driven a truck. You don't have your C2 license, so forth. But there's other things that you can do to enhance your resume to make sure that it aligns as closely as possible to what that customer or that client's looking for in their job description.
Okay. Steve asked, hiring managers say he gets hundreds of perfect applicants as everyone is using AI, only to find in interviews it's all made up. Is the pendulum going to be swinging the other way at some point? How do we get through the ATS but distinguish ourselves as legitimate?
That's a big question. Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of stop gaps in our systems right now, and there's a lot of candidates who tell me that there's companies that they've got a job posted and then it's there for a month and then it goes away for a week and comes back as the same job and it's a new job, and so I don't know what companies are doing. They could be stockpiling, building their bench, building strength, trying to find the best performers that they can put on the front line as soon as they've got the budget to do so. Um, they could be just testing their own internal systems to tweak it here to see what happens. Um, I think AI is definitely playing a big role in everything that we do. But I'll tell you that there are my son works for an AI company. It's called Cinecure. Um, and it's a very successful platform that uses a lot of AI. Um, but it's how do I say, it's not for everybody. Um, it doesn't solve the whole hiring problem. When you hear the ads on the news on the radio that says that, Indeed or ZipRecruiter is the end all be all, they've got a way of generating resumes and names for companies, and they've got a way to collect resumes for companies, but there are still a lot of great candidates that get left in the weeds and get left behind because companies can't recruiters didn't find that perfect person somewhere else.
When you're using LinkedIn, what are you looking for?
Yeah, so great question. So LinkedIn is a tool of choice, and I highly recommend because all of these other AI products are scraping or using the LinkedIn data anyway. So that is one of the most profound platforms out there. So if you're looking for a new job, if you're actively looking, LinkedIn has got to be the place that you make sure that you're spending the most amount of your time. Let me give you some suggestions and tools and ideas of things that you can do that will help accelerate your ability to maybe get found more frequently or to have deeper, better conversations with recruiters. So LinkedIn, first and foremost, make sure it's up to date. Make sure you got a current photo. If you've got a current photo today and it's with your spouse, I highly recommend you just have one person in that photo because your name could be Chris, and I don't know if is this Chris is the female or is Chris is the male photo. I don't know which Chris I'm talking to. So make sure it's just one clean photo. Um, and then what I encourage you to do is make sure you take care of the real estate. Make sure you use the real estate. I think one of the most unused pieces of real estate out there on the internet is candidates that are looking for a new job do not use the about section or the summary section. It's that section underneath your photo, underneath your quick title of what you are and maybe where you're from. It's 2,500 characters. Is that right, Jeff? Or did it go up?
I think at 26, yeah.
2,600 characters. So this is a place where you get to tell about who you are and what you've done. I don't think it's a place to write stories, but I definitely think it's a great place to use keywords. So if you haven't gone through the exercise of taking a piece of paper and put in the back of your notebook and started to write down all the keywords that describe what you do and who you are, that's an exercise that you should spend a week doing. You can use your resume to pull those keywords out. You can look at jobs that you're trying to get, look at those job descriptions. What are the keywords that they're looking for? P&L management, people management, leadership, change management. All of those are key words. Make sure you develop a long list of those keywords. And if you've done those things, again, I don't want you to lie, but if you've done those things, then I wanted you to make sure that those are all sprinkled in and throughout your LinkedIn profile. They can go in this summary section, and they can go in the different sections of the jobs that you've done. Okay. So there's a couple really good places that you can use these keywords. That is how recruiters find you, is through keywords. So when a company that I'm working for, hold on a second. When a company that I'm working for, I'm having conversations with the CEO or the executive team or whatever, I'm gathering keywords that would describe what this company and what they're looking for. In addition to trying to learn what the biggest problem that they're trying to solve and how are we going to define success with this executive, I'm really also trying to identify keywords that I can go back and use in Boolean searches that I can build in LinkedIn or on Google or in AI to try to find candidates wherever they're at. So keywords are critical. Make sure you've got a thorough list. Make sure you're updating it occasionally. Nothing wrong with keeping that file on your desk that's keywords. And when you come across a few keywords that you don't have in your LinkedIn profile, put them in that file, and then at the end of every week, update your LinkedIn profile and make sure you're updating that as well. In that summary section, I also highly encourage you to put your email address and your phone number. Only about 8% of candidates reply to in-mails. Yep, that low. I know it sounds stupid, but the fact is you might get 100 in-mails and you think that's all I do is reply to in-mails from people. But the fact is that number is very low. And so recruiters that use in-mail to communicate with candidates, they've got only two choices. And that is one, if they look at your profile and they see that you've got your phone number in there, you move to the head of the class. Okay, you're the golden child because I can pick up the phone immediately and call and have a conversation to learn about Mike. What have you done? Who have you done it with? What was your success? What would you do differently? What were you making? What's your target salary? What was your bonus structure? I can get answers to about 10 questions in 5 minutes and learn a lot about Mike as a potential candidate for that role. So if you are not, if you don't have your information in there right now, I'm just telling you, you're making a mistake. Now, Jeff would tell you that if you're uncomfortable by putting your phone number in there, that's okay. You can use a Google number or something out there. You can make a fictitious number up there that people can call you. That you still get the numbers, but there's an extra screen in there. But remember, people are not. They don't have your home address. They don't know where your kids are going to school at. So, as scary as it might seem in today's information age, at least while you're looking for a job, I would consider putting both your email address and your phone number in there to allow recruiters to reach you immediately. Keywords, your contact information, updated photo, and then just again using the real estate throughout LinkedIn to make sure that you're not just putting the name of the job that you had and the company that you were with. Give us some stories about what you've done. Again, a great opportunity to put in and use those keywords. That is how you complete a great LinkedIn profile. Now, there are other experts that talk about this. And if you have not attended Terry Sullivan's LinkedIn presentation, then you're missing some of the best free advice that you can get on LinkedIn. He's a guru of LinkedIn. He does not record his sessions, so you can't go into Jeff's library and see Terry's presentations. But if you've got an extra Tuesday and Terry's presenting one of these weeks, and I know he is, you haven't seen his presentation, highly recommend it, because there's details and tricks and things that you can do that will differentiate you and that will make it easier for people to reach you and will move you up in the rankings as far as where you sit with recruiters today when they're using LinkedIn. But those are the biggest tools. I can't expand on it any more than that, Jeff, but happy to answer any questions.
Okay, Sean put a comment in, what about posting on LinkedIn a white paper or a story about a challenge that I solved in my past position? Also, should I add that to my application process as well?
Yep. Highly recommend that you post on LinkedIn every week, twice a week. Again, try to make it relevant. I've been out for a couple weeks, so I haven't posted a lot on LinkedIn, but I try to always come up with a story or something that is relevant or interesting. They provide you with the guidelines, so you can't go over X number of characters. You're not going to get yourself in any trouble there, but highly recommend that you gain followers by doing that, because it's one of those things, Jeff, that when we're going through a job search, we've got to make sure that we keep the blinders off. There's some of the people that are on this call have this isn't their first rodeo. They've had other jobs. They've been in a career for a while. And so um, as we get older in our career, we assume that we know everything. We know a lot, and that we don't need to be taught, or we don't need to change our ways. And I would encourage people to make sure that you keep the blinders off during your search, because you don't know what you don't know, and you don't know where you're going to meet somebody and how you're going to meet them. So I encourage you to, take all the interviews that you can. Obviously, if it's a commission only sales opportunity and it's in a sector that you have no interest in and could never be successful, then I wouldn't take that. But I would make sure that you're taking interviews. There's there's hold on just a second. There's a um, there's many times when a search consultant will send a candidate in to meet with a company about a vice president or a director of XYZ. And the CEO will call me afterwards and say, Sally was perfect. That's exactly what we're looking for the vice president of dot, dot, dot. And it's like, well, wait a minute. That's not what I was searching for. Yeah, I understand. I didn't even know you had that job open. We didn't either. We always knew that if we found the right person, that we'd put them in that role. Sally's that person. Keep looking for the director role. So, if Sally hadn't gone in for that interview because she was concerned that the title wasn't correct, or she was concerned that it was, under her total area of responsibility and she could do this job in her sleep, Sally decided to go to the interview, and Sally got a huge promotion out of it. So um, that's why we keep the blinders off, and we try to keep open lines of communication with everybody and anybody you don't have to turn down job offers until you have job offers. And that's one of the biggest mistakes that candidates make, is they turn down jobs before they've been given the offer, and they don't even know what that offer could have been.
Always go for that interview, regardless.
Yep.
Daniel says, can you tell us about the LinkedIn algorithm and how to make it work for us?
Yeah, everybody would like to know what that is. They change it by the day. My son he can attest to the fact that he's got, programmers working around the world for them to help them, continue to provide the best product and best tools for their users. And that's one of the biggest challenges that they have, is that LinkedIn changes their algorithms every day. They're making changes to try to trick and to keep their predators away from them.
Yeah, I mean, if you, Terry Sullivan will be with us in 2 weeks, and he'll talk about, what you need to do to stay active on LinkedIn. And being active on LinkedIn is one of the things that'll move you to the top of the list.
Yep. He talks about your SSI score, which I think is just really intriguing because that's the first time I'd ever heard about it, Jeff. It was earlier this year. And for those of you that have not heard Terry Sullivan, he'll take you through how to use LinkedIn to find your SSI score. And when I listened to him, I pulled it up on my own, and I was mortified because I was like at a 67. And he and I met and had a 15-minute consultation, and he laughed at me and he said, Kurt, your 67 is really strong because you are number one in three categories. The only category that you don't have a strength in is your relationship building and communication of with candidates in LinkedIn. And I said, well, the reason is because for the last 8 years, I've been using LinkedIn Recruiter. So I do use LinkedIn, but I don't pay nearly the attention to LinkedIn as I have Recruiter because that's where all my communication takes place. And he said, once you make that change, then your numbers will accelerate. And I think the last time we ran it, it was at like 88 or 89. So he was absolutely right. The guy knows LinkedIn. He knows how to help you increase what you're doing. He'll give you tools. He'll give you suggestions, real live stuff, not just go read this book. It's really helpful.
Right, right. Do you want to talk about your prayer letter?
Yeah, I think it's a good time to do that. So one of the tools that I recommend to candidates is that they use a tool, whether you use the one I'm going to give you or something like it. But the fact of the matter is that everybody on this call has a network, okay? And your network at this point is your net worth, okay? Again, your network is your net worth. And by that, I mean that you have all worked for people, you've worked for companies, you've done different things in your career, and you've got a network of people that you can communicate with. And what you've got to do is you've got to figure out a way to open up those doors and to have that communication and to rekindle those relationships so that they can start working for you. So one of many tools that you'll be able to use, but just one of tools that I recommend to candidates. And I've been doing this for a long time, and I've offered this tool to CEOs, to people that are looking for board roles, to people that are in customer service. It doesn't really matter where you're at in the food chain. Um, but the bottom line is that you've got a network of people. So the very first part of the process is that I encourage you to develop a list, an Excel spreadsheet with everybody that you've worked for, people that you've worked with, people that you've met on airplanes, people you met at trade shows, people that are on your soccer team, your kids' soccer team, people you go to church with, neighbors of yours. Um, these are people that know you generally. They know something about you. They'll recognize your name if you call them. So they're not, in my database, people call me all the time. Do you know Sally Jenkins? And it's like, I've got 9,000 people in my LinkedIn profile. I don't know Sally. I wish I could, but I have her email address. I'm happy to reach out to her and see if there's something that I can help you with. But the bottom line is when you're doing your network, it's people that you generally know, you've worked with, they know you, they know a little bit about you. Okay. So the very first thing is you make that list. In that list is email addresses and phone numbers. So that may take you 30 days. Maybe it takes you the rest of August. You get ready for September 1st. Okay. Fall football is going to kick off and you're going to relaunch your search. You've got this list and now you need to literally call everyone on that list. So I want you to pick up the phone and you're going to call everybody on that list. Now, Jeff's put up some words here and some context that you can look at while I'm talking, but the bottom line is you want to try to reach as many people as you can. But if you do get their voicemail, it's all right to leave them a message that just says, hey, Sally, this is Kurt. I'm actively looking for a new opportunity and you're a trusted part of my network. If you've got 6 minutes in the next week, I'd love to talk to you and catch up with you, tell you a little bit about what I'm doing. My callback is XYZ. Give them that number. Don't assume that they've got it logged into their call log. Leave your phone number all the time. So that's your first activity. Now, when you get people live, the other thing I want you to do is make sure that you've got the right email address. People change email addresses frequently. So when you've got somebody on the phone and you're talking to them live, make sure you've got their email address. Then you've made those calls. You've spent a month and you've called those 400 people or 300 people on that list. You've got those calls made. You've left voicemails. People are starting to call you back. The next thing you want to do is you need to, what I encourage you to do is develop some kind of mass media approach. I call it the prayer letter, and you'll see in a minute here why it's pretty effective. So you spent the whole month calling all these people. You've got all these email addresses. You grab those email addresses, you put all of those into a BCC, okay? None of those names go into a CC or to a two, because when somebody hits reply all, you don't want to piss off your network. So they all go into a BCC. And I think you can put up to 300 or 400 names in that BCC. And in the prayer letter, then the letter says, great people in the subject, it says great people know great people. And then in the body of the email, it says, I continue to look for new opportunities. And some of the target companies that I'm looking at include, and you give them 3 or 4 companies that you're actively trying to have conversations with. If you or anybody in your network has contacts with these or companies like these, I would greatly appreciate an introduction. The next piece of it is, feel free to forward this on to anybody in your network. Okay. And then most importantly is, lastly, is there anything I can do for you or a friend? Don't hesitate to call. I really appreciate your valuable time, and I'll be back in touch in 30 days. So this prayer letter goes out every 30 days. You can change it up pretty quickly. You change a few names of the companies. You might put in another line about something you did this summer or something. But for the most part, it's pretty simple. This will accelerate your search. Okay. It's a very simple tool, and you will, the first month that you send it out, you may be, if you send out 300 of them, you may get 100 notes back. Sorry to hear, don't know of anything. I'm looking for a new opportunity too. Let's chat. I'd love to catch up. You're going to get all kinds of replies, but every month those replies are going to get more valuable and more valuable, where you're going to get phone calls from somebody that says, hey, I was just at a meeting and XYZ company is hiring 5 new salespeople. I thought of you. You'd be a great fit. Here's the person you need to reach out to. I'm going to send them a note as well. So your level of contacts and information accelerates and only gets better as this search continues and you send those notes out every month. If you're nervous about this, if you're sitting there and you're not a salesperson, let's say you're a customer service or a finance person, or you're an HR person for that matter. And I'm not calling people out and saying that those are, bad people, but generally they're maybe a little less reluctant to put themselves out there in that sales mode. Um, I encourage you to send that note to 5 of your best friends or 10 of your best friends, that if you were getting ready to make a presentation and your fly was undone, they'd come up and tell you to zip it up. Send it out to 5 or 6 people and ask if would you be offended if I sent you this note every month? Or do you have any suggestions of a note like this going to my network every month that will help my network stay involved and updated in what's going on in my career? Now, the one thing that you do not want to do not ever do not send your resume. Okay. We only save resumes for those people that are most valuable, meaning that we want to send a resume when we know what job we're trying to apply for, what they're thinking about us for. So even as hard as it is, you might have to bite your tongue. Bob, your best friend, calls and says, hey, will you send me your resume? I've got a job that might be a good fit for you. As hard as it is, put the brakes on. Ask John, could you send me that job description? I just want to make sure that I'm sending you the best version of my resume that I possibly can. Doesn't say you're going to change it. Doesn't make you're going to make any changes to it, but you want to make sure that you're sending that candidate or that person back the absolute best resume that you possibly can. Okay, I'm going to shut up. Any questions?
Well, Kurt, thank you very much. I know you got to run here in a couple minutes to get your wife to the airport. I did put a copy of the prayer letter in the chat window, so I hope everybody will download that. If you haven't yet, just click on it, download it. Just remember where it downloads at. Otherwise, it's on your computer somewhere and you never see it again. So that's there. All right. Well, Kurt, thank you very, very much. Unmute my mic. All right, that's Kurt's presentation. Let me get through a few slides here we already talked about. Next week, our speaker will be Ruth Lipsky. She works for Lee Heck Harrison. She works with job seekers every day. She'll be talking about back to basics, making LinkedIn work for you. So this will be a really good presentation. Come join us next Tuesday at 1 o'clock. This Wednesday, tomorrow, you can join the practice interview team in person. They are meeting at Christ United Methodist Church in Plano, at the corner of Parker and Coit, from 1 to 3 o'clock. So you can join them in person. If you are living outside the DFW area, you can't join them in person, you still want some interview information, join us online. We're recommending people watch session 13 of our 13-part interview sessions, avoiding interview crashes, some common misconceptions about how to be an effective interviewer, and things that we frequently see in the practice interview team practice interviews. So if you want to watch that, if you did not get the link on your email this week, you can go to the careerusa.org website and just look for Interview Wednesday for the current date, and the current date will have the link in it. When you open up, when you click on that, it'll have the link that you can watch the video at your convenience tomorrow. This Friday at the North Dallas Plano Career Focus Group, resumes, what to do with all those project details. This is a new presentation that Paula has put together. Please note that the session will not be recorded. So if you want to watch, you do need to watch it live or in person. She will be with us in person if you want to talk with her after the meeting's over. But Paula will be with us for this new presentation. If you want to join the LinkedIn, if you're not part of our LinkedIn groups, please join the Career DFW or in careerusa.org LinkedIn groups. You do not need to live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area to join the DFW group. I just started each one of those LinkedIn groups when I started each of the websites. This session has been recorded. It will be on the Career USA YouTube channel later this afternoon. Please subscribe to the channel. That way, every time we post a new video, you'll find out about it. On the Career USA YouTube channel, it looks like this. Click on playlist where you see that green arrow. Every video that I post goes into one of 7 different playlists. I've got over 700 videos over the last 5 years, all about interviewing, networking, resumes, and a lot of the great speakers we've had at our Friday meetings that you may not have seen anyplace else. So check it out. It's a lot of great information there. If you click on like the red arrow which says view full playlist, you don't want to click on the videos you see there because it'll show the last video that was posted. But if you click on view full playlist, you'll be able to see the date, the speaker, and what the title is, so you can scan down and see the video that you'd like to watch. If you're not receiving emails about our workshops, you can scan this QR code and just send a blank email, or just send a blank email to Career USA, the + subscribe at groups.io, and you'll be added to our weekly email that we put out. You'll never be spammed because I control the list. So if I don't want it to go out, it won't go out. Please remember, Career DFW, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. All of our speakers are volunteers. I'm a volunteer. Everything I've done over the last 17 years has just been to help you land your next great opportunity. So thank you very much for joining us today. Have a great Tuesday, and hopefully we'll see you tomorrow at the pit crew or Friday.
Hey, Jeff, I have a question.
Yes.
Hey, you said about going to